All right, welcome. This is our first official episode of our Two Cents podcast. My name is Aaron, and this is my wife, Asia.
Hello.
We actually just got home from night market here in where we are right now in Bangkok. We were cruising around a crazy set of shops and places selling everything you can imagine with street food and all kinds of other craziness going on with our two kids. It was a lot of fun. They're actually a lot of fun. So if you don't know, currently we are on sort of this travel extravaganza, our family. And right now we've been in Bangkok for the last week and a half now, I think it's been.
It feels like longer, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's only
I think it's been almost, I think it's been 10 days.
yeah.
So we've been here for 10 days. We have, I think, 3 more weeks here in Bangkok. So we're here for a while. But yeah, that's where we're at currently. We're at currently in Bangkok. So we thought it would be fun to start this podcast off with just chatting about our trip and how it sort of originated and yeah, just talk about all of the challenges and fun things along the way of doing a trip like this. Why don't we throw it back to maybe last fall, 2024? I think the idea of a trip like this kind of came up at that time. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was somewhere around there. I don't know. What do you remember of sort of the early conversations around, hey, should we take off for three plus months and live somewhere else for a while?
Yeah. Well, I think even taking it back further than that would be fair because this is something that Aaron and I kind of in our intro, we kind of went over how we really enjoy traveling and have enjoyed traveling as a couple. And even with our kids, like ever since they've been brand spanking new babies, we've basically traveled with them right away as soon as we could get passports for them. So the traveling in itself isn't necessarily new to us. And we always have talked about how cool it would be to be able to go and travel and live in other countries. And we've talked about oh, it'd be so fun to live in Europe and all this. And so I feel like the seed had been planted for us long before the opportunity ever kind of came around. My feelings on it. So I work in network marketing and my network marketing company offers incentive trips every single year that everybody has the opportunity to earn. And my understanding of when the seed really got planted, we're we should really give this a go, was when the last trip was launched. And it was to a place Aaron and I had always had in the back of our mind and neither of us have ever traveled, but every single time we've talked to people or we would see things, the destination was Costa Rica. And every single person was like, I love Costa Rica, it's the best. And then we kept hearing it. So then when our company launched a trip to Costa Rica, it kind of was the catalyst of should we do this? Should this maybe be the time that we consider going for a longer period of time than just what the trip would be? Obviously, I had to earn it, which was step number one, but it was kind of should we extend our stay for a significant period of time? So I feel like that trip being launched was kind of the catalyst of us starting to think about this because yeah, we're in Bangkok right now. We actually started though in Costa Rica in October, so 3.5 months ago. So that's when I feel like it kind of began. I don't know.
Yeah.
Same.
I remember we were sitting in your vehicle and we were watching the announcement of where that trip would be, and it was Costa Rica, and it is somewhere we had discussed numerous times because we've had such good reviews from everybody who's been there. They were like, yeah, Costa Rica is amazing. And
yeah,
we were
I
like,
feel
well,
too, it was
we
one of
wanted
those
to go there
moments.
someday anyways.
It was one of those moments for me where I was like, this is the universe telling me something, to not waste this opportunity. I would have never, I should say never because we are avid travelers, but I feel like I wasn't quite ready to take the plunge on going to Costa Rica. Mexico was super easy to do with kids. We did Bahamas. That was relatively easy, obviously long travel days, but I wasn't fully committed to trying out Costa Rica. So the fact that this trip got launched, I just felt like this is a sign from somewhere that it's time for us to just give this place a try. So that's kind of where it all got started, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of a trip was sort of long before that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we've been to numerous places. We went to together, South Korea in 2015. We went to Thailand
Yeah,
after
we've
our
done Thailand.
honeymoon in 2017. So we'd been here before. In 2019, we went to Europe. We did Czech Republic, Amsterdam, Hungary, Germany. So like we had traveled a lot, like I would say a lot prior to that point. And one of the things for me that I thought about ever since I went to Switzerland it was Scotland and Switzerland in 2014. And I remember thinking like, whenever I met people from around the world after that point, I always remember thinking, like, I wonder what it was like to grow up where they grew up. Like, I only know what it's like to grow up as a Canadian kid living in Western Canada, and I know what that's like. I don't know what, like, for example, we had a nanny watch our kids for the last year and a half, and she was from England. She was from just south of London. And I'm always curious, like, what's that like growing up in just south of London? Like, what are the things that they do? What do they eat? How do they communicate with each other? So I've always been fascinated by that and that was the first time that I actually had left Canada and the United States was when I went to Switzerland in 2014 and I was 24. So after that point, I just remember thinking like, it would be fascinating to know what it's like to grow up or just be like submerged into these cultures and have it sort of like in your brain what that's like. I mean, it's impossible, obviously, but that was kind of my initial like desire to go out and stay for prolonged periods in different places was kind of that. Like, I want to know what it's like to be there and live there and be what those people do every day and eat and talk and what's their culture like? How do they treat each other? Are they just all that stuff? So it had kind of been in the back of my mind for quite a while. I think I was much more like, yeah, I'll go. Sure. Let's do it. I'm down. And I think you were more like, you know,
Yeah, I mean, if you were to tell me we're gonna go on a 2-week vacation, I have zero problems with that. Sure, whatever, this is so easy, sounds great, it sounds like a great time. But to commit, even I feel like when the conversation first got started, it was like, well, we should just go for like a month. And I remember thinking, oops, that's a really long time. Or like, is this the right time? Like, there's so many thoughts that I think of, like, is it right timing? Can we make it work? What is that going to look like for us? So I kind of am much more hesitant, where Aaron is very much the type of person who's like, let's just do it and figure it out. Like, he obviously he will think about things, and he's much more prepared going into things, I think, where I don't allow myself to get prepared because of my hesitations, if that makes sense. So he will like prepare and then be like, everything's going to totally be fine. So that, at least for me, I was a little bit more hesitant to fully commit to doing a longer stay, because I mean, everything is figure outable and I know this, but I think I was just more nervous. I had more apprehensions for sure. And then like thinking about the kids and what that's going to be like. And obviously I run a business like remotely, but just thinking like what that impact would be. So there was more concerns, I guess, on my part than Aaron was just like, let's just do it. Let's figure it out.
and like, it's not like we didn't have problems to solve. There was some pretty
Yeah.
substantial issues to get around, but yeah, I don't know. You just gotta figure it out. Like, nobody's gonna come and tell you how to do it. You just gotta either bite the bullet on some things and it's gonna cost you some dollars, or you'll find a way to not have it cost you some money, or somebody will help you out here and there. There's just no other way around it. You just kind of gotta fight some of those things off. We obviously, part of why we're doing this too is we have a house for sale. So,
Yeah.
you know,
That helps.
we left while that house is being sold. So it was kind of like dual purpose a little bit, like, but that's obviously one of the challenges we had to sort of figure out. We had to work with other people to sort of get that house sale going along, and how do we manage being away from Canada while this is all going on. And so that was one of the issues that we had to work with. Uh, can you think of any others that were kind of
That's probably I mean, that is the biggest one for sure, of just like making sure the house was ready to be sold because like we've been building a house as well for like the last few years. Like this is part of the process. So it was like it needs to be done by this date so that we can leave because flights are booked. Like there was no real thing. I think another thing too that has always left me up in the air is like, okay, say the house sells while we're gone. We kind of needed it to be in a state where it was easy for us to move ourselves out if we weren't going to be home for the move out process and like what that was going to look like. So there were so many things to consider, but I honestly think that was probably the biggest one. And then, yeah, I mean, just thinking about what you're going to bring with you for 3 months plus, like that was also, we tried to really condense it because we
Sure.
knew like we knew that we were probably going to go to multiple places. We didn't know how long we were going to be gone. Like we truly were like, let's commit to 3 months. And if we end up somewhere else, we end up somewhere else. And so we obviously have ended up somewhere else, but it was just, I mean, there's challenges with all of that. We have vehicles back home that we still own that we also needed to kind of figure out. So it wasn't just like we sold everything and like left the country. It was like we still have assets or liabilities, if you want to call them that, freaking vehicles that we still have back home that we had to figure out different things for. But I mean, ultimately, I think the house being for sale it's the perfect time for us to do it. I mean, we have 2 young kids to not have to go through the house showing process with while being at home and our kids being at home and trying to keep the house clean, honestly, is a massive
Yeah,
peace of mind for me
that's a
because that
nightmare.
is such a freaking headache. Yeah, I just did not want to be involved with that. Even when we sold our condo a few years ago, like we moved out of it fully before we listed it for that exact reason because we were like, I don't want to have to do this at all. So honestly, like the timing of it, I feel like was just perfect, even though there was some things that we had to figure out. It worked out
Yeah,
well.
it was a bit of a crunch. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, we had to pack up our whole majority of our house, our stuff, our
Yeah.
kitchen, and then figure out what are you going to bring without fully understanding or knowing where you're
We're
going to
going.
go.
I know. And I
How
think too,
much, I
like,
mean, we had
I
never
mean, we
done it
left.
before, so it's not like what exactly to bring or not bring, or
Yeah.
so inevitably, the first while, I mean, I didn't wear anything other than like 4 t-shirts and 2 pairs of shorts in
I
Costa
feel like we're
Rica.
still doing that. Like even now I look at my suitcase and I'm like, oh my goodness, the amount of stuff I brought that I haven't even touched since being here is stupid. Like I should get rid of half of it. But
Yeah.
you just are clueless. Like you have no idea what you're gonna go through. And even now, like being where we are in Thailand, it's like not every place that was available to rent had washers and dryers available. So it was like that was something I didn't even think of. Fortunately, where we are does, but that was something I didn't even really think of prior to coming here. Like that could be a possibility. So it's just there's so many things that you have to consider, I guess, that you aren't even aware of sometimes until you're actually gone.
But I think that's part of what's really cool. Like you
Yeah.
go somewhere else and not every home has a washer and dryer.
Yeah.
Like
And that's standard because
you,
that's just not important.
I would imagine, I mean, we're staying in a nice area in Bangkok in a nice building.
Mhm.
So I would imagine since they only have like a 2-in-1 washer and dryer, if you go to something a little lower than this, I would imagine that they don't have something and you walk your stuff down the road to the laundromat or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I would think so. I don't know that for fact, but this is quite a nice building, and it's just a difference of, I mean, who would you find in Chilliwack that doesn't have a washer and a dryer? Like it'd be very rare.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And so then let's even backtrack a little bit to actually going to Costa Rica. Because when we first got there, the first 5 days were part of the trip through my company, like the trip that I had earned through my company. So that kind of honestly was really easy. Like it was a little bit weird because it felt like I'm kind of like moving here, but this is a resort. So it still feels like a vacation. So the first little bit was like really easy. It's all inclusive. It's very cushy. Like there was no real adaptation. And then after 5 days, we went back to the airport because we had to get our rental car. And then we had to drive, what is it from the airport? Two
It
and a
was like
half
two
hours,
hours. Yeah,
two
2 hours.
hours to our place where we were staying in Costa Rica. We stayed in this little surf town called Samara, and that was rougher. Like that transition was rougher. I don't know if you want to speak on that first, then I can give my 2 cents. But yeah, it was very different than staying
The
in a resort.
Yeah. So we flew from out of Seattle. My parents drove us down. We spent we flew out at like 11 at night on a Tuesday or something like this. So we drove down, I don't know, we left the house at maybe 10 in the morning.
Yeah, it was
And we drove down and we spent that whole day like driving down through
like
various
10 hours.
islands, and we kind of hung out for the day, and then we got to the airport at like 7 at night or something like this. And so it already been a pretty full day at that point. So then we get on a plane and everyone actually crashed. We flew overnight from Seattle to JFK in New York, and we landed at like 7 in the morning or something like that Eastern, and only had like maybe a couple hour layover in New York. Everyone was jazzed right up at that point. The kids.
Yeah,
everyone had we had a decent sleep on that plane.
Okay, yeah.
Like everyone slept for maybe 4 hours out of the 5 or whatever it was, just over 5.
Honestly, too, just like a pro tip, night flights with kids, we literally do them intentionally. Like it makes a big difference most of the time.
Yeah. So that one was good to JFK. It was in the morning, we landed JFK, and then we got another one, which was a little bit rougher.
Hours. Yeah.
It was a little rougher because we got on at like 9 in the morning, and then we didn't land in Liberia till like 3 in the afternoon or something. So it's like daytime outside. The kids are not necessarily supposed to be sleeping. You know, it's daytime. They're super excited about the whole thing. They're getting a little chaotic and crazy. And so that was kind of, but for the most part, it was a really good travel time. It was nicely broken up. 10 hours, one shot would have been a lot harder in my opinion. So we landed in Liberia, and then we went up to La Cruz, I think it was called, where the resort was. And that, I mean, those are so easy. It didn't feel like we had gone on trips like that maybe 5 or 6 times already with the company. And there's a bunch of people there, there's kids there that Baker and Luca hang out with and play with, and they know from back home or just other trips. So there's all kinds of people there to do things with and play with, and it's a buffet, so you just go eat whatever you want, whatever you want. So it wasn't really like a glimpse into what life was going to be like.
No,
that's like a glory trip at that point. But after we went from La Cruz back to Liberia to get our rental car, it kind of kicked in for me. I mean, you load up in a new vehicle, you're driving in a country you've never driven in before. You don't fully understand the rules of the road. Like, I mean, obviously you wouldn't go and read their laws around driving a vehicle. You just kind of drive, right? So driving from Liberia to Samra was a bit of like the first time I was like, okay, we're fully in a new country here now. Like there's nobody setting up rides for us to go to the resort or none of that stuff. Everything's in Spanish. So English is not great there. There's very select few people who could have like a full-blown conversation with you. So it's not like you get into a pickle and there's 6 people you could talk to in English to sort your problem out. It's not like that. So that was a bit, I don't know, it was a bit nerve-wracking at first to start driving, just given I don't understand the rules of the road. I don't understand what's okay, what's not okay, kind of like slang, I don't understand all that. So it took a while for me to just get comfortable. And then I realized there's basically
there's
rules.
No rules.
There's if no one wants to wear a seatbelt, that's fine. If you want to speed, that's fine. If you want to haul, cows on top of your car down the road, that's fine. Just do whatever you want. Just don't hurt somebody. So once I kind of figured that out, it was like, I'm like, oh, okay, there's nothing to worry about.
It was so funny too, because when we were preparing to go, like our company had sent us out like all these rules, like, okay, if you're traveling with kids, like we see you're traveling with kids, like, do you need to rent a car seat or whatever? We're like, no, because we're gonna stay, so we're gonna bring our own. So we like bring our own, like so nervous because we're like, clearly the rules like matter, because we've traveled to Mexico, they don't give a crap about car seats or anything. Like they're just like, throw your kids in, it's fine, whatever. So I was like, okay, clearly they care in Costa Rica, and that was like really not.
They don't care
the case. I mean, I'm
all.
sure they have rules around it, but like they're not followed. And very clearly when you see like a family of 4 on a motorcycle, you're like, oh, okay, this is one of those countries. Got it. Like this is just, I get it. Like
so especially once we got to Samra, like Samra is this tiny small little surfer local kind of feel town to it, especially at the time we got there in October. it was not
Not
packed with
busy.
tourists. Like we were the only white people walking around. It felt like
For the
everyone
first
else
like
was
few
like
weeks for sure. Because there
for the
wasn't a lot
first
of tourists
month.
there. Yeah.
I mean, even into the first week of November, there was no, like, you walk on the beach, it's a massive beach. It'd be like kilometers long beach in this
We'd be like
cove.
the only ones there.
And you'd be like one of 10 people around the whole bay
Yeah.
on the beach.
Uh-huh.
So it was very quiet when we first got there. Very few people even surfing in the water or nothing. So it was like a bit of a shock because you're kind of just left with the local people. Like it's you and the local people. It feels like there really wasn't many people who spoke a bunch of English.
No.
We found some people later on, like some North Americans who had moved down there and lived there permanently, or people like that. But for the most part, it was just you're meeting locals who can say like 20 words in English and you can say like 11 in Spanish, and
Yeah.
you're like trying to figure out a few things. But luckily, we met a guy named Pablo who was a like Sumerian through and through. He's been there his whole life. He was, I
Yeah.
don't know, he's probably like 60, 55, 60, something like that. And we met him walking on the beach one day, and he was like the perfect guy for us to meet. He loved Baker and Luca. He wanted to show them everything. He had his own, so he would do like fishing tours for people, or he'd take them snorkeling, or he'd go to this island that was there. So he would do tours for people, and he learned how to speak English, which was kind of his real strength of his, because he could communicate with any person on that beach.
Uh-huh.
But while there was 10 people on the beach, 4 of them were us. One of them was Pablo. We befriended this guy who was like instrumental in some of the experiences that we had there
Sure.
because of his local knowledge of various things, that he was able to help us out, and he could speak English.
Uh-huh.
So that was a big help when we had first got there. But also when we first got there, we stepped into our Airbnb and that we'd rented for 2 months, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was 2 months.
Yeah.
And it was like 0 bedrooms. You go up the top stairs and there's a loft area, and then there's like a curtain for a second room. And that was quite a challenge.
Yeah.
For me personally. Like that was quite a challenge for us just to figure out, like, how was sleeping happening? If the 2 kids go to bed and we stay up an hour or 2 later, they have the lights on because there's no door. They can hear what we're doing. Like, so it was quite challenging. And they hadn't really been sleeping themselves at this point either. Like
Even
they had
like prior,
slept,
like at home.
yeah, at home. They had kind of slept either with us at times, or we'd lay with them until they like fully fall asleep.
Yeah.
So that was challenging. And then obviously going from like 4,000 square feet of home space down to 800.
Maybe. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say maybe
maybe
1,000. I don't even think it was that much. It's probably 800. That's
maybe
tight.
800.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a challenge. But I'll preface all of these challenges by saying this. One of the reasons we decided to go and do this was like, when you say yes to doing something like this, that there's going to be things that are super uncomfortable just because it's different. Like you go across the world, it's different than what you're used to. I think collectively we both thought, I know I for sure thought this, hey, if we could expose our kids to these things early that are challenges, like going to the beach and playing with kids who speak no English. How
Uh-huh.
are you going to figure out how to communicate with them? Well, you could try Spanish or they could try English, but you're probably not going to have a good communication, like be able to communicate well. So then you end up, how do you figure out how to play? Like
Uh-huh.
there's all kinds of these things that I think, looking back on the months we've been doing this now for sure, but even before we started doing it, I think we both thought this way, like being able to expose them to these hardships of being around the world, different places, things they're not used to, languages they're not used to hearing, foods they don't normally eat, methods of transportation that they don't normally have, standard of life that is incredibly high back home, comparatively speaking to the places that we've been. So that was one of the things. So when I'm speaking about some of these challenges, like these are some of the things that we wanted to have. And I think looking back personally for you and I don't think we expected as much of those challenges to sort of be difficult for you and I.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a lot of them have been very difficult for you and I. I think we expected them more so to be difficult for the kids.
And I
But
would actually go as far as to say that the kids are really surprised in their adaptability, where things are hard for you and I, they seem to be more go with the flow. And it might just have something to do with they don't have that rigidity yet. Like we have that rigidity of like, this is how my life was back home. This is how I liked it. With kids, I feel like that hasn't fully sunk in. Like they only have 5 and 3 years of it, where we have 31 and 34 years of it, But there was definitely some challenges. I feel like one of the biggest things, and I'm only going to say like this as a we couldn't make it happen. But one of the things I was very surprised by was the cost of things in Costa Rica. Like that really surprised me because I felt like, especially with food, like I felt like we were going to the grocery store and we were buying like rice, beans, and eggs, and we were paying like hundreds of dollars for it. And I remember thinking like, is this all that I'm going to eat for the next 3 months? Because if that's the case, I'm getting out of this country. Like I truly felt that way and we even had conversations like 3 weeks in, I was looking at places to go in like Cabo. I was like, that's going to feel more at home. I know it. They have a Costco. Like it's going to be great. And, but again, it was at 3-week mark that things like you started to settle in. Like we found markets, we found fresh fruit, we found better ways to communicate with people, we found better options. But for the first 3 weeks, it was extremely uncomfortable. Like trying to figure out where to go, who to talk to. Like, yeah, it was a challenge for sure. And I think like, I'm so glad that we didn't leave. I'm so glad that we persevered and stuck it out for the 3 months. Cause we had said like, when we're going to Costa Rica, we were like, we're going to stay for 3 months. That's the goal. And within 3 weeks, like I said, I was literally looking at like, how much is it going to cost to get to Mexico? And can we just stay in Mexico for 2.5 months? Because I was not thrilled initially, but then after that, it really, like they're saying in Costa Rica, is pura vida, which is just like living simply. Like I mean, directly translated, it's like pure life or something like that.
Yeah,
But
it's like stress-free living
it's
is kind of what
stress-free living is like
everything
very
needs to be
much the
stress-free.
way that they do things. And I was not in the pura vida for the first 3 weeks. It really took me like 2 whole months of being there before I was like, I see it now. Like it's okay for things to be slow. It's okay for us to figure things out. We don't have to have everything planned. Like it's okay. And you really start to get that vibe. But initially it was very uncomfortable. And I was looking up places to go that felt more comfortable for me. Like we've traveled Mexico before. I was like, I could do this. I felt very uncomfortable there, but never like more so just being pushed outside my comfort zone. Like I needed to try different foods. I had to open up my mind up to that, which I have learned. Like I'm very food, like I need to know that it's like food security, like things that I'm going to enjoy eating. That's a weird thing for me. Like that honestly being there really brought up, but because it's like, I get a lot of joy from it, like pleasure from it. So anyway, that was hard. And then, yeah, just like, I don't know, new way of living and all living on top of one another. Like you said, going from like a
Yeah.
very large house to a very small space, trying to work alongside that. And yeah, like there was definitely some challenges for sure.
I thought one of the biggest challenges was uh beginning of November. We had been there for a month and the weather was pretty decent. Like I mean
Yeah.
every day it's 30 degrees outside. It's just a matter of whether it's like 27 and cloudy or 33 with no clouds. So we had been there for a while and it was pretty good weather all of October. We could really do whatever we wanted. It would rain for 2 hours a day, at various points, but then it'd be super hot and sunny at the other times. And then at night it would lightning and thunder and it was actually kind of nice. And you'd be inside and hear water drops on the roof and thunder going on outside. So it was kind of nice. And then everyone had told us, you get to November and,
Oh my
it's going to be packed with tourists because the weather, shifts on a dime, and it's going to be like so sunny and it won't rain again for the whole time and till March and it'll be perfect. And we kind of thought, oh, that's great. That sounds awesome. And then
God.
November came around and it was like maybe the 10th ish, maybe just before that. And it just started raining
No,
every
just before
day,
that.
like raining so hard that at one point there was a family who moved into the house beside us because their house was flooded and the vehicle was up to the windshield washer, like the windshield wipers in rainwater,
Yeah.
like that level of rain. So
I
you
will
couldn't go
preface it
outside.
though, this
There's a
was like a massive storm that was passing through that was very
yeah,
uncharacteristic. But no, I'm pretty sure it's
but
the week
also
before the 10th. It was like the second or third it started raining. It was like 22 days of
it
rain.
was after Allie had left, and Allie left on like the
The
third or
third.
fourth.
Yeah.
So, but also there was a storm, but the storm wasn't like 2.5 weeks. The storm was for like maybe 5 days where it was just absolutely chaotic. But it had been raining like nonstop, and it was completely insane where we were because the kids wanted to go do stuff, and
No space.
we couldn't go outside for like 20
Days.
minutes
Yeah.
because I mean, you'd go outside and then half an hour later, it would just be raining sideways again.
Yeah.
And you can't, the water gets kind of mucky from the rain and it's not as warm as the kids would like. When you're used to 30 degrees outside and all of a sudden it's 25 and windy and raining sideways and pouring rain, like
Uh-huh.
you get cold no matter what the temperature is. But I thought it was like kind of one of the things I remember from that time. It was really difficult, first of all, because you're in an 800 square foot apart like building. You were trying to work pretty hard. And so the boys and I had to figure out like, okay, we're going to be awake for 14 hours today. What are we going to do? And
Yeah.
we just sort of figured out little things to do here and there. We started playing card games with Baker and we just tried a zillion things. But I remember that being a very hard time. Like, yeah, you're in Costa Rica and yeah, you're doing this fun thing. But it doesn't mean that everything's fun. Like, but I do remember one incident where, not an incident, it was an event. We had a car, so we could drive where we wanted to. And we were coming home from somewhere and it was raining totally sideways, like totally sideways. You could barely see out the windshield. And Baker was so set on riding his bike. He just wanted to ride his bike because he loved riding the bike that they had there for him. And he just wanted to ride it everywhere. And we got out like halfway home because we kept telling him, like, Baker, it's raining sideways outside. Like, it's pouring rain. And we stopped at that, I think it was the corner store,
Yeah.
down these pothole ridden roads.
Yeah. None of the roads
All of them there are
they're all
basically
dirt.
pothole ridden.
Yeah.
Dirt, pothole ridden. When it rains, it's like an ice rink of mud. Anyways, we pulled over, like, all right, if you want to ride home, you can ride home. No shirt on, shorts. And he's just plowing through puddles, riding in the sideways rain as we drove behind him. And I was kind of like, at that point, I kind of remember thinking, like, okay, well, I guess we can do stuff outside. Like, it's just a matter of, are you going to do it or not do it? Like, it's really that simple.
Yeah.
Coming from a 5-year-old. So, but I remember that whole time period being quite challenging for everybody. And when we got on the other side of that, it was like,
Oh,
wow, this is really fun now,
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is very easy all of a sudden. Everything's super easy. We got like an array of things that we
Yeah.
could do every day. It's hot, sunny.
Yeah, I agree. I think too, like in that particular place, I don't know what it's like in bigger cities when the weather is like that, but like they do experience rainy season, but they're so used to having good weather. There's no indoor activities either. Like that would be something that would be a massive privilege back home is that, I mean, it's colder back home. It rains a lot in the winter. We have a lot of places we can go indoors with our kids. So it was a big challenge. I even had met some people, like they use a lot of WhatsApp there. They have WhatsApp groups and I met some
No, they
people.
use exclusively WhatsApp.
Okay, yeah, they use exclusively WhatsApp. And they'll have like groups and stuff. And so I had met some people and gotten their numbers. And I remember messaging one of the women who had a son the same age as our kids. And I asked her if there's anything to do inside. And she was like, oh, yeah, the rain is getting to us too. And no, like, no, there isn't. Like everything that you do is outside. So like this makes it really challenging. I'm like, guys. But yeah, so we ended up staying in Samara, that little surf town, for 2 whole months. And yeah, I mean, we learned a lot about ourselves and our kids and just like what we are able to handle. And I mean, I guess it kind of like Erin said, it's like, okay, boo hoo, like you're in Costa Rica, but there definitely was some challenges. It's not, you do not have accessibility to things. You don't like, especially in a small town, it's like, what is there is what is there. You're not ordering anything on Amazon to come and make your life better or more comfortable. Like what you have is what you have there, which has its pros and cons. Like you definitely don't buy into any of the consumerism when you live in a country like that because it just doesn't exist. Like that is not something that is available to you. So it's nice in a way that if you're like, oh, I wish I had this, you honestly don't even really have those thoughts. Like I didn't really ever have those thoughts because I just knew that wasn't an option. So it simplifies your life a lot, but also there's challenges of like, you don't have sinks. So when it's pouring rain or when, things might not be going your way, there's not a very quick solution to solving those problems. So a lot of it is just like mentally you have to get over a lot of it so that you just can try your best to make the best of it. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was funny. We were trying to find like a pair of goggles,
Yeah.
like children's
We had to go
goggles,
like
where
45 minutes.
you could find them anywhere, anywhere in North America,
Yeah.
literally anywhere. And we went, I remember asking like 4 different people. They
Yeah.
sent me on like a milk run
Yeah.
around Samara for
Oh,
like
go check out
40
this
minutes.
store.
Because I would be like, hey, do you know where you can get this? And they'd be like, check out that place. Okay, go check out that place. Guy doesn't speak English. No chance that there's even goggles in the place. They're not even selling like anything related to
Yeah.
like the water. Go to a different place. Go to a different place. No, try here, try there. And then we end up just buying him like a set of like,
Snorkel gear.
adult goggles. Those black adult. So Luca's wearing like adult goggles that are like that big on his face. And then we had to drive to actually find a children's set. We went to the store in Nicoya, which is a 40-minute drive away.
Yeah.
Which would be like the equivalent of their Walmart. It's called Maxi Pally. And we ended up getting a set there for Baker that actually had like a snorkel and stuff. But it was, I mean, some stuff is just almost impossible. There's numerous times people would tell us, oh, if you want that, well, you have to drive to San Jose.
Yeah.
Which is like a 3.5 hour drive.
Yeah.
I tried to get a fishing net while I was there because there was people there with like beach cast fishing nets, and I thought, man, that would be fun to do. We tried to find a beach cast net. No chance. And someone told us, no, if you want to do, Pablo told us, like, no, if you want one of those, you got to go to San Jose. Well, I'm like, well, I'm not driving 7 hours tomorrow to go get a beach pass. And so we ended up having Allie bring one for us when she came. But I think that sort of captures the idea that like they just don't have stuff readily available. I mean, we were walking around the streets of Bangkok tonight. I'm pretty sure I could get anything I could possibly imagine on the 7 roads we walked down, like the back alleys that we walked down.
Yeah,
I think
the accessibility here is bigger.
Costa Rica is like the total opposite of that. It's like
total opposite. But I think
you better
that
figure
also
out how to
plays
make it
into
yourself
their,
if you want it.
But that plays into their like pura vida lifestyle. They're just like out of sight, out of mind. Like we don't need it. We're good. I truly believe that's part of it.
Most of the things they have would be related to like, do I need this to live? Like a fishing rod. Well, I need a fishing rod so that I can catch fish and eat dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. That's largely what they have. And a bike. I need to be able to have a bike to move around.
Yeah.
But they don't have stuff. Like they just don't. And it doesn't matter to them at all.
No.
It doesn't matter at all.
No, it definitely doesn't. And then we went from Samara to Jaco, which was a very different vibe, a bit of a bigger city. We ended up staying in a condo that was larger than the place that we had stayed in Samara, like significantly, I would say at least twice the size. Had 2 separate bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a large like kitchen and living space. It was actually really nice. And part of the reason why we went over there is because we had quite a bit of family come and visit us in the month of December. So we obviously needed an extra room. We needed spare beds.
Well, we went to Jaco we went to Jaco because we wanted to see like numerous places across Costa Rica.
Yeah, that too. But also, we needed
We
more
we
space.
yeah, we got a bigger room because we
Way,
had people coming to visit.
yeah, that's why. But also, yes, we did want to go check out more things. And we had heard mixed reviews. So like if you talk to Costa Rican people about Jaco, they tell you not to go there. They're like, oh, it's all hookers and drugs. Like they just say don't go. And I'm like,
So Las Vegas of Costa Rica.
essentially. But it's funny because I mean, first of all, it probably is past like 9 p.m., but we have two kids. We never were out late anyway. We
Yeah.
didn't really experience that whatsoever. But so you talk to Costa Rican people, that's what they say. And then you talk to like American people or Canadian people, and a lot of them say amazing, great things about Jaco. So we were like, okay, well, let's go and kind of obviously make up our own mind on it. Let's go check it out. But I'm always a little apprehensive when local people are like, I wouldn't go there. But I thought it was great. I know Aaron liked it more than where we were
Yeah.
before. I think a big part of that is that he was really big on like the kids side of things when we were in Samara. I was doing a lot more work in October, November. It's just a busy season for me. So he had to spend a lot of time with the kids. And when it was pouring rain and all you really have to do is go to the beach or the park, that makes it really challenging. So when we were in Jaco, we had this awesome apartment with like a very resort style pool. We were walking distance to downtown, lots of restaurant options, much more affordable too. Like Samurai found was even just to eat out for our family. Yeah, we found some really good places, but I just felt like Jaco was more affordable. There was more to do. It was fun. Things were closer.
Yeah. I thought being in like a complex, there was like 6 buildings in our complex. It was like a bunch of condo units in, it almost felt like a resort in Mexico.
Yeah.
Where you have a bunch of different units across a bunch of different buildings surrounding a main area. And there was a pool down there that was sort of like winding through some bushes and trees, and it was all manicured nicely. And so like just the where we were alone made a big difference, where we could just go downstairs, take the boys, sit in a lawn chair, have a drink if we want, whatever.
Yeah.
And the boys could swim, and there's other kids there because
The
there's
kids was a big
180 units in the complex, and there's other kids there on the weekends. There's people coming from San Jose to stay in Jaco, and there's more people to play with. So like just that piece alone, I thought made a huge difference.
There was much more of like a social life, I feel like, for all of us involved when we were in Jaco, just partly because of this resort style building that we stayed in, which is nice. Like, I mean, I love you and everything, but it is nice to be able to connect with new people, and also for our kids too. That was something, especially Baker, our oldest. He's a really social kid. Like he really loves playing with other kids. And it was much more challenging when we were in Samara because the pool we had was 1 small and 2 our own. So there wasn't other kids coming to play with him. So being at a place like that where it was just this communal area, everybody could hang out and swim around. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was perfect. And everyone could sit around and swim if they want, and sit in a lawn chair if you want. But also in Jaco, right beside us at a community center, and at the community center, they had skate parks, so they had ramps and stuff. They had a basketball court there. They had various games like foosball, ping pong, chess games, like a big chess floorboard. And again, other people, it's a community center, so other people show up doing whatever they want, playing drums, all kinds of stuff. So that was great because we went to a store and bought scooters. Baker was pounding us about a bike, but we ended up buying scooters, which turned out to be amazing. So we could just roll over there with the scooters and screw around for an hour, go back home. We could just do that. And we played games in the half pipe with golf balls or all kinds of stuff. So Jaco, I liked Jaco a lot more. And I also felt like there was wildlife in Samara, monkeys, howler monkeys in the trees. Jaco was more like unique felt like Costa Rican animals, where there was capuchin monkeys at some of the beaches. They'd horse around in the trees, jumping, stealing people's food, feeding them. There was scarlet macaws we'd see every single day. There was pelican bomb diving in the ocean, catching fish. There was toucans we saw numerous times. There's all kinds of birds birds around there. I thought, especially for Baker, that side of it was perfect in Jaco, and I really enjoyed it too. I also liked in Jaco, yeah, just the little town. Samara was like, I mean, it was literally like 3 stores or bars you would go in,
Yeah.
and that's like honestly it. Jaco had a bit of a vibe to it. There was a main street. There's a whole slew of different sodas you could go to on different streets and
A soda
different
is
locations.
a restaurant, like a
Yep.
small, locally owned mom and pop style restaurant. They're really
Yeah, and
good.
they usually
Really like
cook.
authentic Costa Rican food. It's super
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So, and then there was numerous places around the town, or sorry, around the city that we could go and explore.
Uh,
There was what's the name of the beach we went to? Los Sueños. Los
uh,
Sueños was like a nice community with nice homes in it and condos and a golf course, and they had a yacht club there and a beach and monkeys, and so they had more stuff like that. Like Samurai, we went to Carrillo Beach and swam in the beach,
which
but
was a stunning beach, by the way.
it was amazing beach. But where else would you go?
Yeah. That was a lot of where you would go.
You go inland to Nicoya to go to like a Maxi Pally, but there's nothing you're going to do there.
Yeah.
So in Jaco, we went to the national park. We drove down an hour and a half or whatever it was to what was the
Oh,
national
and the crocodiles.
Manuel
Crocodiles
Antonio.
in
15 minutes
Tarcola.
from where we were, there was a bridge over the Tarcolas River with 5 or 10 crocodiles sitting in the river at any given time we went there.
Yeah, we ended
So
up
there was
doing
just
2
a lot
crocodile
of
tours, which were unreal. Definitely
well,
recommend go do a
there was
crocodile
a
tour.
lot of other things to do outside of Jaco. There's things to do inside of Jaco, but then there's numerous things to do outside surrounding Jaco that made a huge difference in my experience for things we
Yeah,
could do.
yeah, I agree.
It was also nice in December we had both of our parents come and visit, which was
Yeah,
nice.
that was good.
We did a bunch of things with each of them when they came, and it was really nice to have people you normally see that you haven't seen for a while, and
Yeah, that actually
you
too
can
brings me back.
communicate with in English.
Yeah, communicate in English. I was just gonna say too that actually brings me back as well when you had asked me what were some of the challenges for leaving. That was actually one of my biggest ones is leaving my mom, to be honest. Not even because I mean she is a great help to us with the kids and stuff like that, but not even because of that. I think so much of it is that her and I have a really close relationship, and I've never like left it. And I also feel a little bit of guilt behind like removing our kids from those relationships from people for quite some time. And I know like, okay, what's 3 months, 6 months, 7 months, whatever. But it just felt like a really long time to take our kids away from their grandparents because so much happens and changes over that period of time. And I felt a little bit of guilt around that. Like, okay, this is a big dream of ours, but I also feel sad that the grandparents don't get to be around our kids while we're living that dream. So that was something that that I was really like, it wasn't something that was ever going to hold me back from doing this, but I did feel a little bit of guilt around it. So to be able to have people come and visit us, it did feel really good to have them see our kids and get to interact, like do what we do when we were in Costa Rica. I thought that was really fun. And yeah, like you said, just to have a little bit of like your people back in your life again for a hot minute also just gives you that little piece of home that I feel like around that time, I know I was missing it a little bit. And it was enough to kind of just recharge me to continue to go and do this for a little bit. And also just know like, okay, at least if we, come back in April or May or whatever that looks like, then they haven't gone that whole 7, 8 months without seeing the kids. Like they've gone 4 or 5, made me feel
Yeah,
better.
yeah, I think that's understandable. I think the flip side that's also really cool is, to me personally, I'm gonna remember some of the things that we did forever. Like with our parents
Yeah.
going into coming to Costa Rica and doing stuff with us that we
Mhm.
had been doing, and listening to Baker talk about a zillion animals that he had learned about since he'd been there and share them with his grandparents. And going and doing crocodile tours and whatever, mangrove tours, all these kinds of things. And I also think, both sets of parents said, oh, I never would have come to Costa Rica if you guys weren't here,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
we came here as something we wanted to do. You guys came here to join us for a short period of time, something you never would have done,
Uh-huh.
as you said. And we got to do a bunch of things that you'll likely remember for the rest
Yeah.
of your life.
Yeah.
With your kids, Baker certainly will remember
Yeah.
a
For
lot
sure.
of those things. I don't know how much Luca will remember, but
Yeah.
he'll
But
probably get told enough stories that it'll just get implanted in his
or
head.
shown enough videos too. That's such a beauty of like the day and age we live in now. I know people make fun of us always having our phones out, but truly it's so cool because we'll have these memories literally forever on our phones that we show our kids. It's the best.
But I always think about, like, if you were at home for 7 months being around our parents, it's likely you could go 7 months and not do something that you're going to remember for the rest of your life.
Right. It would just be so
It's
much
actually
regular.
highly likely.
Yeah.
You're just going to do the things that you do, and not that they're not fun, but you're going to go have dinner, or you're going to do something fun for an hour or two here. But it's likely they're not things you're going to remember for the rest of your life. Like going to Costa Rica, having them be there after 2 months, staying in the same place for 2 months, going and exploring a new place together, trying new food together, having a different language, and interacting with people in a different language together.
Yeah.
Listening to our kids talk about all the new things that they have learned over that period of time, whether it's animals or whether it's words that they've learned in Spanish or whatever it is. Like, so I think that's a really cool thing. And I like that. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but I really enjoy that. I really enjoy like a shortened period of time where we do things that are really memorable.
Yeah.
Versus, a prolonged period of time where we do the same sorts of things.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
See you every Tuesday for dinner. It's like, okay.
Yeah, like I
those
value
times are
that
great
a lot.
too, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I think too, being able to give our parents a different experience that they wouldn't have ever had. I think that's really cool as well. It makes it memorable for everybody. So I definitely, for me, one of the big things of having them come really just gave me that like piece of home. I do enjoy my people. Like I enjoy my friends. I enjoy my family. And so it did make me feel good to just like have some people come where I'm like, okay, I genuinely believe too, for me, I mean, even just with you and our kids, that in itself has become so much more of my feeling of home than just a physical location. And I think that's solidified by being away and doing this, where I'm like, I think I could honestly go anywhere if I have like my core four of people here with me. And then the rest of y'all can visit when you want to. But I feel like that has given me a sense of home too while traveling away, that it feels good to just be able to do things together, the four of us, and have our little sprinkle of people come in. Again, like you said, because you're way more intentional. Because how many times, like, I know this for my own self, but even you too, like, how many times do we just like go to my mom's for dinner and like we end up all sitting on our phones after dinner one day, or like, it's just like you're not as intentional with your time because you know you're seeing that person again in 3 days.
Right.
Whereas like when you're here and visiting with them and actually creating an intentional memory, it's something that's memorable. You're not thinking about all the other things you could be doing because it's like right here, right now. I want to be with these people. So I feel like.
And we should go do something because we know the time's limited. We should go do something.
Yeah, we only have 8 days, 9 days, whatever that looks like, right? Yeah, I totally agree.
But that was fun to have both of them come and visit. I'm not sure it'll happen again on our journey here, but
yeah, I'm not so
it
sure.
was really nice. And again, it's something I'll remember for the rest of my life. And
yeah, same.
I'm sure everyone except for maybe Luca.
Yeah.
Will too, but.
Sorry, Luca. He's going to be like, I feel like I got gypped. We're going to have to do this again.
Then we ended up, so your mom and Randy were there until the 31st, and we left on the 30th.
Yeah, we ditched them.
And we took off. Yeah, we took off. We were in Jaco. We left on the 30th, No, we left on
The
the
29th.
29th,
Yeah.
and we all drove packed to the gills in a car with the 6 of us. Again, there's only 5 seats. Costa Rican rules. 6 people in the car,
Pura
81
vida.
suitcases, and we drove what is an hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours roughly
Yeah.
to San Jose, where we got a hotel for the night. And then, we flew out the next morning super early. We were on we went to El Salvador for an hour,
Yeah.
and then we
Quickly.
landed in Dallas,
South
Fort Worth
Texas.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went to go visit Aaron's brother there for a couple
Yeah.
weeks in
My
between.
brother him and his family live out there. So we went out there for a couple of weeks, and that's probably a good point to cut this off for this episode.
Yeah. And we'll
And
fill you guys in on the rest of it, what it was like being in Texas and how we felt. Oh, how we felt being in Texas after not having access to a lot of things in Costa Rica. It was nice. And then kind of obviously our travel day for how we got to Thailand. We'll fill you guys in on that later.
yes, but as of now, it's 10:06 in Bangkok, so it's probably time to go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. This is the only time we get to do this without kids, so it works
Yeah.
out.
All right.
All
See
right.
ya.
We'll see you guys in the next one.